Okay, you should be live.
Okay. Live from Robla. Well, yeah, I'm not seeing. Okay, yeah, I see it now. Okay, well, I call this meeting to order. The meeting on September 10th, 2020. If you will all join me for standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll go ahead and get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You know, I think we're gonna have to work on doing that because Ruben was the only one that could be seen fully and decently. Everyone else we just saw kind of your thorax or something.
Sorry.
I was guilty of it too. So yeah, we'll work on that. Okay. Okay, so we're moving on to item 3B. Action report of action taken in closed session. There was no action taken in closed session, so there's nothing to report. Moving on to item 3C, adoption of the agenda. There are no amendments. So is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move.
Second. It's been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously and the agenda has been adopted. Moving along to communications. This is item 4A. And the first item on that is public comment. This is where individuals wishing to address the board on any non-agenda items which are of interest to the public and within the board's jurisdiction may do so during this time. The board may not act upon items presented during public comment, but may briefly respond to statements made, ask a clarifying question, or refer speakers to the district staff or other resources. Our procedure is quite simple. Submit a comment in live chat on the YouTube channel during the live stream of the board. There is a little bit of delay, so we will be monitoring that. Or you may submit a comment in the public comment section of the agenda in Assembly. That's for staff members here. Assembly Gamut meetings by entering your name and email address. The board assistant will review and provide public comments to the board and enter them into the meeting minutes. So this is a time for the public to make comments, and we'll wait for a couple seconds to see if there have been any comments. As I mentioned, there's a little bit of delay, so that's why we're waiting just to make sure that no one gets left out. Okay, I am not seeing anything, so we will move on to reports. And first on our agenda is the Robla Education Foundation. Is there anyone from the Robla Education Foundation today to give a report? Oh, you know what? My apologies. I should have waited a little bit longer. There was a comment on the YouTube channel. I hope that you have an opportunity to discuss the current status of distance learning as a teacher. I'm interested in to hear how you are receiving the plan in action. Oh, yes. Okay, so my apologies because I did not see that come
Okay,
up
got it. Yeah.
in time. And thank you very much, Miss Charlie Monahan, for that. I believe that there will be ample opportunity for discussion on distance learning. We will move on to reports, and I mentioned the Robla Education Foundation. I did not find out if there was anyone present from the Robla Education Foundation. And not hearing of anyone, we will move on to CSEA. Is there anyone here from CSEA? Not hearing anyone. Is there anyone from RTA? Okay, and next is our superintendent, but we seem to have lost him.
Oh, I'm here. No,
Oh,
he's there.
I'm sorry. For some reason, I thought we had lost you for a second there. Okay, next we move on to Superintendent Reyes. Take it away.
I'm here all the way, Mr. Barnes. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. I would like to start actually with an update about our distance learning program. We're calling it Distance Learning 2.0 to make sure that we distinguish it from our initial attempt at distance learning, which started back in March and lasted through the end of the 1920 school year. This newest version is a version that is very much new and improved. We spent a great deal of time over the summer months working on discussing the lessons we learned from our first attempts to make sure that we were shoring up those things that needed some improvement for this next go around. First of all, one of the most important aspects of this work is that something that is really turning out to be something that is very helpful for everyone. We know that students need structure. We know that structure lends itself to success in school. Students thrive on some sense of continuity, some sense of predictability around their school day. And with that in mind, we have now a set school day schedule in the Robla School District that applies to all students, TK through 6, and then there is a separate preschool schedule that is followed on a daily basis. So the teacher day starts at 8 o'clock. The school day for students begins at 8:30. There is an agreement that live lessons will be provided during these during 2 initial 90-minute blocks in the school day, and that teachers will be providing a minimum of 45 minutes of live instruction. We're well aware that many of our teachers exceed that requirement because they sense their students have that need. But we are very pleased to know that we are having that initial language arts block and then a mathematics block following a break in the morning. Then there is lunch, and then in the afternoon is when we deliver students independent activities, as well as engage them with other websites and other kinds of assignments. We also, in the afternoons, deliver any specialist services, whether that's any special ed services the student may need, as well as enrichment and other intervention and ELD instruction that students who need those services need to receive. So it's a very structured day, and it's we think we're seeing that it's much more successful in terms of our student participation. It's important to also note during this new go-around in Distance Learning 2.0 that there is a big difference between attendance and participation. And we do have our teachers taking attendance every day. They do that first thing in the day, and that helps us to know who is there for the live instruction. But we're also monitoring participation. This is not only a state requirement, but it's also something we had already figured out was important as part of our system. So teachers throughout the day are monitoring who is with them, participating in lessons or turning in assignments. And we then work on making sure that we are reaching out to any students who are less than fully engaged. In this new go-round, we've made some new assurances with connectivity. So we were able over the summer to purchase hundreds more computers than we had last spring, and now we are able to make sure that every student in the district has a computer to themselves. Last spring we had to have students share if there were 2 children in the family, but this year we were able to provide a computer, 1 per child at home, which is a really important step in the right direction. The other issue is connectivity for families who may need some Wi-Fi support. And we had purchased last spring 300 hotspots. Didn't end up loaning very many out in the spring, but I was told at my meeting yesterday with Mr. Vivier that we are down to 3 hotspots that have not been borrowed by students. A few have gone to staff, and we have actually made a purchase of more hotspots should we need them, and that order is already in the works. Our other responsibility during distance learning, of course, is feeding our students, and our Meals and Wheels program is up and running and doing very well. Initially, we weren't seeing the high numbers that we had seen last spring. We really thought that that might be due to the fact that the federal government tightened the reins and said that we could only feed our own students. So we actually had to provide meal cards to our children. They had to show a meal card when the bus came to their neighborhood so that they could receive their food. And even if they had maybe a toddler sibling in tow, we were not allowed, according to federal guidelines, to feed anybody but our own students. But since that time, the government has granted a waiver, and we are once again able to feed any child under the age of 18, and the numbers immediately started shooting up, and we're very pleased about that. The other thing that we've done is that we have created, our food service department has created what they're calling a second chance meal pickup. So every Tuesday through Friday, if the family somehow missed the food delivery on their food delivery day, they can drive to Maine, Bell, and Taylor, and pick up a meal. It's a second chance to pick up a meal. And the hours that those pickups can happen are during our lunch break. So if the family's busy because the students are online, and then we have our lunch break, that's when they can drive over to the school and pick up a meal. And then supper is coming. We have not been serving supper since the school year started, but we are gearing up to do that. And then the final aspect of Distance Learning 2.0 is a new committee that we are putting together. This is being headed up by one of our principals, Mr. Penman, and it will be a new instructional technology committee that will work on some refinements in regards to Google Classroom and Google Sites and other apps that we're using, so that teachers understand the full capacity of those systems and are able to access every trick in the book to make sure that we are using them to the fullest extent possible. So the plan is that we will be talking about all of the capabilities of Google, for example, and then provide training videos to teachers so that they know how to use all aspects of that in their in the work that they're doing.
Quick question on that, Ruben. So do we have anyone, like, is Google have any sort of representation or anybody that they're making available to school districts to kind of assist in assist that committee?
We haven't reached out to Google in this work. Mr. Deleuze, what we're doing really is relying on the teachers that have shown a great deal of expertise. And so we're going to use our own in-house experts to share their facility with this work.
Okay.
Okay. Our daily enrollment, I did want to share with the board that Adam put together a chart, which I had, and now I seem to have lost. Hang on one second. With just how this year's first day of school compares to the last number of years. Give me just a second to find that.
Well, while you're finding that, let me just make a quick comment, and that is thank you for giving us the information on feeding children up to age 18. I think people don't always think about the fact that, you know, even though we're an elementary school district, our children have older siblings that matriculate out, and it's kind of tough if you're in a situation where, you know, one sibling is being fed and another is not. So it's nice that we're able to address this situation holistically. Thank you.
Great. This is a sheet that Adam put together for me that you see on the screen now. That shows how our first day of school for the 2021 school year compares to our enrollment on the first day of school going back as far as 2008. So you see definitely some peaks and some valleys. We've been higher, but we've been lower. I think we're very pleased to see, and of course, numbers have picked up from the first day as they generally do. But it also shows that, you know, as I've shared, the fear that I had that kept me up at night in July and August, that maybe none of the students would show up because they all are fearful around the world right now, did not come to be. And we have captured indeed, you know, all of our students, and we're really pleased to do that. And we'll continue to monitor our enrollment. We will bring you numbers once a month at the board meeting, as we have in the past, and we will begin by doing that next month.
Mm-hmm. Superintendent Reyes, can you talk a little bit about interaction with parents and feedback from parents?
The interaction with parents is really with the teacher in the classroom. So interaction is around what teachers are connecting with the children and connecting with the families. We do have an agreement that teachers are going to connect with every child in their class once a week, whether that be through an app like Remind, or through a phone call, or through Zoom. And that's how we are reaching out. If, of course, we have anybody who is not fully engaged, we have our Student Find program, and that Student Find program is our very clear procedures around who's to reach out and make attempts to re-engage that child or that family.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm just navigating my documents here. I did want to share with the board that we have been working very hard to establish our focus this year for the work that in the past we've called resilience and social emotional learning. But this year we have added in the other topics around anti-racism and culturally responsive instruction, as well as work around Black Lives Matter. We continue to work with our consultants, Daryl Roberts and Sarah Trubridge, but we've added some new consultants in this year who are working with us now in the planning process. And that is around deepening our work in ways that really, I think, show our commitment to serving a community that we do that is very diverse. We know that this is important, and even though we are proud that we've been doing this work for a long time in the Robla School District, we're it's very important to talk about how we are changing what we're doing. So what new actions are we taking? So
I would be if there is any sort of an outline or links to content or information that's included in the new ways of doing things or teaching some of this stuff, or new content, I would very much like to get that.
Sure. I would say, Mr. DeLuce, that the very first place to start is on our district website, which has my superintendent's message. And our message this year is very different from what it's been in the past. And it talks about the work that we've done and the work that we think we need to do. There isn't a lot of detail yet because we're still working out those details, but on our homepage is the superintendent's message. And if you watch that message, it's myself as well as Dr. Trubridge and Mr. Roberts talking about our commitment to creating a plan for doing this work this year.
And I viewed that. I'm just curious. Generally what I'd like to know is when you say we're doing additional work, in terms of as you're going through that planning, if there's going to be additional content, things like that, that's going to be made available, or it's going to be required of either staff or students. That's the sort of content that I'd like to be able to see.
Absolutely. And not only that, but we will be sure we are sharing updates with the board as that begins to get implemented. I will share that the two of the new consultants, number one of them is, the first one is Dr. Andrea Moore, who was a professor of cultural studies at CSUS, who is now involved with us in this work. And then the other person who was a new consultant with us is Ms. Sonia Lewis. And Ms. Lewis is the founder of the Liberation Collective for Black Lives here in Sacramento. and she's also committed to working with us on this. The activity, I'm sorry, the other people who are involved is we have now involved a couple of researchers in this area so that we can monitor the effectiveness of this work. And there is both a researcher from CSUS and a researcher from UC Davis. And then there's a company that Dr. Trubridge has connected with called Developmental Sprint, and they are working with us to help provide a structure around what this reflective work will look like for us as individuals, so that we can grow along these areas that are the focus of this work. The very first concrete thing that we are in the planning for is there is going to, so it's something we've never done before. It's an all-employee book read. So every employee in the school district will receive a book called Other People's Children. We do have copies for the board. We will need to get those to you. That's written by Lisa Delpit, who is a researcher around the idea that oftentimes the teacher is from a different cultural group than the children in her class, and that we need to be thoughtful around how we make those connections to the children that we are serving. That book will be read by everybody in the district, and we are working on devising a monthly meeting where every person in the district can discuss the content of that book and their own growth and related to these topics. And so we're outlining that now, and as soon as we have that outline, that can be something that we will share with you. I wanted to mention that that was that topic. The next topic is just support for families. We know that distance learning is not easy for our families, and so we have been working to create some new partnerships around supporting our families in distance learning. One such collaboration is with the City of Sacramento, and it's called SAC Class. And SAC Class is being conducted at the Hagenwood Community Center, which is not in the Robla district, but it's not too very far away. And we are allowed to refer families, and these families will receive all-day daycare from city staff, and the city staff will be supporting them in their distance learning. It runs from 7 to 3 every day, and the hope is that it will grow into, so that students can stay there until 6 o'clock. Of course, that program follows all the health guidelines for our county. So the students are in small groups, they're doing testing, they're taking temperatures, they're doing social distancing. But it's great for those families who are having difficulty supporting their children with distance learning. And then we're working with Mr. Roberts, whose contract is up for approval with the board tonight, to create a program that's for 30 additional students. We have determined that this program will take place at a church in our district, and we will rent some space, and it will be, again, small groups of 10. And the people who will be working with our students every day from 8 to 3 will again be supporting them in their distance learning, and principals will be able to refer those students who need this, and this, of course, will be at no cost to the families. So we're trying to add in these other levels of support and daycare for some of the children. And then finally I'm going to share another document here. Hang on just a second. And this is, this is the board meeting calendar that we develop every year. So I wanted to share with the board, and we will, Shari, I guess we can put this in the drive so the board can access it. But this is an outline for all of the board meetings this school year, as you can see. And we have developed, as we do every year, the calendar for all of the reports that the board will get this year, so that we get together all of the department directors and department heads, and we talk about making sure that throughout, at some point during the year, we're providing the board with a report on every program and every service that we provide, so the board is kept up to date. And then you can see all the legal requirements that we have as well, of things that have to happen at a certain time in the school year. So this is just for your information. I think since we've been doing this, it's been a pretty effective approach, just because it's a more consistent way to make sure that the board is receiving regular updates about the work that we're doing in Robla. And that's my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Reyes. We will move right along to board member reports, and I'm going to take the opportunity to do a roll call because I didn't get it before, so all members are accounted for with the exception of Trustee Howard. And we will start our board member reports with Trustee DeLuce.
All righty then. So let's get started. So let's see a few things. So we have been meeting for the delegate assembly, for the CSBA delegate assembly. We've been doing meetings every third week or every other week, just kind of getting together, going over various different topics. And one of the things that we've been doing is kind of reviewing and talking. And this is, by the way, this is all of the members of Region 6, which includes Sacramento County, Placer County, I believe Yolo County, some of the schools in Yolo County, and El Dorado County. And so we've been talking a lot about how we're approaching reopening, things along those lines. And it's been interesting. Like I said, I know later in the board meeting, we're going to be discussing our MOUs with our collective bargaining teams. I know that we've already talked about and approved our reopening plan. I have to tell you that the degree of collaboration that we have done has been phenomenal, and all the districts are doing collaboration, but the ability that how we have been able to put students first. I just want to say, I want to commend our not just our superintendent, but also the leaders of both of our collective bargaining units. It's really been, I know you guys have put in a lot of work, but it's really been phenomenal. And when I share with other districts, with other board members, what we've been able to get accomplished and what we're doing, they are amazed, because it's not going as well for all of them. In particular, the Sac City, who is actually dealing with their collective bargaining unit has basically said that they don't even want to do the 180 minutes, which is actually the legal minimum that they're required to do. So anyway, suffice that to say, I just wanted to say that that's kind of been the one big thing. I know that in discussion, a lot of the discussions also been around the idea of LCAPs and some of the new requirements during LCAPs. And once again, what I really appreciated was it appears that that's things that are there are things that we're already incorporating. Like, what are we doing to get in contact with students who maybe had not been in contact with, maybe who haven't been checking in? What are we doing additional to reach out to parents beyond just emails and surveys? So it's nice to know that our staff and our leadership are thinking beyond the minimums, but really looking at going above and beyond to make sure that we're doing what's best for our students. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for all of that, and that's really my report.
Thank you, Trustee DeLuce. We'll move over to Trustee Cardona.
No, nothing to report.
Okay. Trustee Boyd.
I really have nothing to report, but I'd just like to echo what Mr. DeLuce said. I really am proud of this district. I always have been. I think our colors really have come flying through, or we've come flying through showing our colors. And I just want to say thank you to everybody too. Mr. DeLuce said it well.
Thank you. And I will keep my my remarks short because Trustee DeLuce did say it quite well, and showed my appreciation for all the hard work done. So I want to reiterate that. And on August 18th, we had our back to school session, and it was a really good session. And I was able to thank the staff for all their hard work as well, because like everyone said, we really have, all of us have come together and worked hard and put our children first. So it's great to see all that come to fruition in such a great launch. So, that being said, we will move on to item 5, presentations. And we will start with our facilities and bond presentation with Emilio Flores from Caldwell Flores and Winters.
So Emilio isn't here tonight. My understanding is that he is stuck in a board meeting. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but he is in another board meeting. So we have Sumit here as well as Jordan from CFW. Are you going to start, Sumit?
Yes, I'll begin. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to begin tonight by giving you all an overview of the district's recent bond sale, and then my colleague Jordan Miles is going to provide a brief facilities update following that. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay. So just to provide a little bit of background, the bonds that were issued last month were issued under the authority of Measure K, which was approved by district voters back in November of 2014. The Measure K authorization was just under $30 million, and the district has previously issued $16.5 million across 2 series of bonds. So in 2015, the district issued Series A and B, 6.4 and $10.1 million in bonds respectively. And then last month in August, the district sold an additional $6 million of bonds from Measure K. So following the sale, the remaining balance of Measure K's authorization is $7.3 million. To give you an overview of some of the milestones of the issuance process, back in June, the district's board approved necessary legal documents in order to move forward with the sale. Following that, in July, the district met with the rating agency Moody's in order to request a rating for these bonds. That's a normal part of the bond issuance process. The rating agencies essentially ask the district a series of questions and judge the district's credit worthiness. I'm happy to report that Moody's affirmed the district's rating of a AA3 with a stable outlook. So that's in spite of a lot of the broader economic uncertainty that everyone is experiencing right now. Following the receipt of the rating in early August, the district did sell the Series 2020 bonds under Measure K via a public sale. The bonds were very well received in the market. There was a lot of demand from investors, and the underwriter of the bonds actually received more orders from investors than there were bonds available to sell. So it was a successful sale. And then in the following couple slides, I'll give you a few statistics regarding the issuance. Following the bond sale, on August 19th, the transaction closed and bond proceeds were received by the county for deposit into the district's building fund. Okay, so with regards to the bond sale itself, you can see some information here on the slide. The bond sale occurred during a time in which the market is demonstrating historically low interest rates. So this is actually a good time to go to the market and sell bonds. So in terms of the average interest rate, or what the terminology we use, which is called true interest cost, the bonds were sold at a true interest cost or TIC of approximately 2.76% with a repayment ratio of 1.93 to 1. So a repayment ratio under 2, which is significantly lower than the state's maximum of 4.0 to 1. The bonds were sold as all current interest bonds, so the district did not need to utilize capital appreciation bonds as a part of this sale. And this bond sale will not immediately increase taxes for district taxpayers because of the net premium that was issued. So some of the premium that was issued during the bond sale will be deposited into the debt service fund, which will be used to make interest payments over the next couple years. As I mentioned previously, slightly over $5.8 million has been deposited into the district's Measure K project fund with the county, and these funds will be used primarily to fund phase 2 projects. Okay, As you can see in the table at the bottom of the slide, we have a breakdown of sources and uses of funds. Like I said, just over 5.8 million was deposited for the building into the district's account with the county for the building funds. And the bonds were issued over a term of 33 years. And I already mentioned the repayment ratio. So were there any questions from the board regarding the general structure of the bonds or regarding the bond sale process? No? Okay. And then just to give you a sense of the breakdown of some of the costs of issuance, the cost of issuance in total was approximately just under 3% of the principal amount of the bonds. The underwriter's fee or discount was 0.4% of the principal amount of the bonds, which equated to a total of 3.3% of delivery date expenses. The underwriter's discount is the fee that the underwriter charges for marketing and selling the bonds. So essentially identifying investors who may be interested in purchasing the bonds, letting them know about how the bonds are structured, and essentially getting them to place orders on the day of sale. Okay, and then the contingency in the COI is any remaining balance after all of the invoices have been paid, and this amount is transferred into a separate county fund if it is not utilized. Okay, so that was the bond sale summary that I wanted to deliver to you this evening. Were there any questions that I can help address at this time regarding the bond sale that which recently closed?
I'm just curious. This is more structural. I want to understand kind of the process. Can you tell us how you go about identifying an underwriter for something like this? Is that just something that's there, or what? What's the process?
Sure. So in terms of identifying an underwriter, typically districts will have ongoing relationships with underwriting firms. So we have worked with this particular underwriting firm, Raymond James, and the underwriter's name, the lead underwriter from Raymond James, his name is John Barrissey. So he has a long standing relationship with the district. He's very familiar with the district's debt that has been issued to date. In terms of how underwriters are selected, the process can vary. So some districts do choose to go out for to essentially bid it out via an RFP process every time that a bond issuance is undertaken. As the district's financial advisor, we continue to monitor the underwriter's fee or discount, and the underwriter's discount here of 0.4% is very much in line with the industry standard. So there are benefits to utilizing a similar or the same underwriting firm over time, just because they can help determine the most efficient structure for the new bonds, and they have familiarity with the district's outstanding debt. So does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And Mr. Barnes, hi, this is Emilio. The district did go through a process back in 2014 when we started off with Measure K, and we went through a selection process. At the time, and you may recall this, we did have a board discussion regarding selection of underwriter. In particular, at the time that we had selected Raymond James, they were a new entry into the California market. And at the time, they had provided us with a very competitive rate for our bonds, and they continue to provide us a high level of service, even though in many cases, the underwriter's discount is actually below market. And so given the experience of the underwriter prior to joining Raymond James and going forward with that, we were able to continue to rely on that agreement with them, and they've continued to honor that agreement. Periodically, at the district's direction or discretion, absolutely. I know that when Tim was CBO, we had gone through the process going out once again just to basically take an informal solicitation of bids in terms of what we believe the underwriting discount would be. And so we went through a informal process at that time to see whether or not the rates that were being provided by Raymond James were in line. And at the time, they were still under the current market rate. We have gone through a couple processes. Those predate to meet, but we have gone through those. And the district, unlike a financial advisor, the federal government and federal regulations, want to make sure that there is the ability for districts and other issuers to change underwriter. If there's any desire to do so in the future, if there's any desire, to go out further in the process, that's certainly something the district has the option to do. You are not locked into a long-term agreement with that particular underwriting firm, and we continue to monitor, as Samit mentioned, the rates and the overall performance of the underwriters.
Thank you. I'm glad you could join us.
All right. Were there any other questions regarding the bond sale? Okay, if not, then I'll turn it over now to Jordan Miles, my colleague from CFW, who will give a brief facilities update.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Jordan Miles from CFW. I don't have a polished presentation this evening like Samit did. Just wanted to provide a quick verbal update in terms of where we are implementing your master plan from last year. Over at Robla Elementary, as you know, our construction is underway over there. Demolition work continues. I believe the last board meeting we were here, we did send over a link to show the time-lapse camera that we installed. That camera updates every 5 minutes, so that way you can take a look at the images and the construction work happening over there. We can resend that link to anybody that is interested. For that project, again, we did receive DSA approval back in late May. However, there was some additional design work needed in order to receive CDE approval for that project. Over the last 2 weeks, we did finalize that work. We coordinated with the architect and their sub-consultants, making those minor revisions, primarily to the parking lot in front of the campus in order to increase pedestrian visibility. Those improvements have now been approved by CDE, and so the district now has CDE approval letters for the project as a whole, as well as a letter for the kindergarten classroom component of the project. That letter is important, so that way because we can now use that letter along with the CDE, along with the GMP contract and DSA approval to submit your funding authorization form to OPSC, so you can receive the remaining apportionment from the kindergarten grant program. That application will be sent over to OPSC shortly. We anticipate, based off of our conversations with OPSC, that the district can receive that funding within about 3 weeks' time once they've received that application. So we're hoping that by the end of September or early October, the district will have that remaining apportionment in their account for that project. Any questions at Robla Elementary at this time? Great. I will move on to Bell. Over at Bell, again, 2 separate projects over there. Both were submitted to DSA in the spring. Both projects actually received approval from DSA at the last week in August. So we are currently working with the contractor that was approved to provide the pre-construction services for both of those projects on generating our guaranteed maximum price contract, or the GMP. Those negotiations are still underway. We're anticipating having those wrap up by the end of September, so the contract can be approved or considered for approval at an October board meeting. We continue to monitor the project applications for approval at CDE. Again, there were 2 separate applications sent over this summer for both projects, and we continue to monitor in case there's any review or revisions needed for either of those projects. And lastly, over at Glenwood, that project was submitted to DSA for approval at the end of June. We did have a back check appointment with DSA in early August and received some comments. We are coordinating with the architect and the rest of the design team on finalizing, addressing those comments. At this point, the vast majority of those comments have been revised and incorporated into the drawing set. And we expect to come out of DSA hopefully by the end of September on that project. Then also for CDE, the CDE project application has been finalized and is expected to be submitted to the state later this month. And we, similar to Bell, we will be reviewing the review process of CDE during that time. Any questions about any of the projects currently under design or under construction?
If I may, Jordan, just two highlights. One is that the OPSC application at Robla is important because that's money that is already allocated to us. So that is a check that comes back to the district. I believe about $800,000 that comes back to us for utilizing the grant program. And unlike the Prop 51 money, which is the state bond, this money is actually coming from the state general fund. So we don't have to wait in line. We get that money and we use that money towards other projects. So just wanted to thank everybody that was helpful in the application together. The second thing for the board's information as well as the public is that Mr. Castillo and I myself, along with the CFW team, are working on some updates for the bond portion of your website. So we hope to have that working on those to provide additional updates on projects and status. And then lastly, going back to the time-lapse camera, for those of you who were with us when we built Main Avenue, there used to be a function where you hit a button and it automatically generates a time-lapse video. We discovered that was disabled, but we're re-enabling that so that you can actually come back to you at the October board meeting and show you, actually, I guess the September board meeting, show you the building actually being demolished. So you can actually see it happen over time. And hopefully by then you'll also start seeing some concrete work as well. So I just wanted to add a couple of those highlights. And once again, thank you as always for letting us go out there, have fun, and in this case, letting us tear down the boardroom. But appreciate it, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, Emilio and your team. We appreciate that. Excuse me. Okay, we will move on to item 6, the consent agenda. That is where a single action will approve the consent agenda and authorize any action necessary in the agenda. And we can pull out any item that needs to be pulled out. Are there any items that need to be pulled out of the consent agenda? Okay, then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are moving on to item 7, which is a public hearing for sufficiency of instructional materials. And for this, since it's a public hearing, this is a chance for to receive comments from the public, from staff, and from the board. So with that being said, I will open up the hearing.
If I could make a comment, Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
First of all, Mrs. Howard, welcome. It's nice to see you.
Oh, yes, welcome.
Just secondly, I think it's important to note that we take this very seriously. The responsibility that the Robla School District has to make sure that we have sufficient materials for all of the students. And we make sure every year that we are staying current with our materials and that we have ordered enough materials to make sure that every student has what they need at school. And we're very proud that when we had the observations that we had, and they come visitors from SCOE to see if indeed we have done that, the Williams visits, then we have never had any findings in this area. And this year that process has been changed, but we again are making sure that we have enough materials for everyone.
Thank you.
I move to close the hearing.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that closes the hearing. Thank you very much.
I think some of the folks are on mute. They may need to unmute themselves while we're in the process of action items.
Thank you very much for that, Trustee Duluth. I do appreciate it. Because, yeah, it's Zoom. It's a little different.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. Let's see. We are moving on to item 7B, which is resolution number 848, the sufficiency of instructional materials for 2020-21 school year.
Moved.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our action items, which is item 7. Item 7A, call special board meeting on September 17th, 2020. That is next Thursday, so it's going to be a very busy month. Superintendent Reyes, would you like to make a comment, or is there any comment on this?
Yes, if I could just kind of present the background for this item. We, as the board I think is aware, are not going to do at this time an LCAP. We did not bring that to the board last spring. We now have moved into a process that the state requires to develop, write, and approve a learning continuity and attendance plan. And that plan has been in the works for some time. There are new regulations in regards to the content of that plan. It's not nearly as involved as the LCAP, but it does require us to engage with the community and to present to the community our plan for meeting the needs of our students during the pandemic. So the plan talks about how we're providing services with distance learning, how we're making sure the needs of special populations are being met, how we are making sure that our nutrition program is running. And as the board knows, these are all things that we have been working very hard on, and we just need to summarize it all in this report. The new process requires that we have a public hearing at a meeting that is not at the same meeting where we approve the plan, and the plan is not ready for tonight, so we could not do the public hearing tonight. So that is the reason that we're asking for a special meeting next week. That would be just a very short meeting. I guess I shouldn't say that. It is for public comment. So if we were to have a lot of comments, it could take some time, but it would just be that single item. And then once we have that input, then we can make any revisions to the plan and then bring it to the board for their possible approval at the regular board meeting on the 24th.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I didn't see who seconded, but I did hear.
Me, Mrs. Howard.
Okay, so that's moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7B, contract with Roberts Family Development Center, RFDC, to provide resilience, professional development, academic intervention, and summer academic intervention. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments on this item?
I would like to comment again, Mr. Barnes, if I could. I wanted to point out that this is a change in the contract that we've had with Mr. Roberts. He and I communicate quite frequently to make sure that we are revising our plans to make sure that we are meeting the current needs. We are cutting the cost of Mr. Roberts' contract in half in our commitment to be sure that we stay fiscally responsible and prepare for what we know are probably significant cuts that school districts in the future. So we worked to come up with a new plan that still provides significant service to our students, to our parents, and to our staff. And I described already the school year program. the summer program will be a bit different this year. And then the resilience work that we have done every year are all part of this contract.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, we'll hold for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Was there a motion on the floor?
Yes, there was.
There was.
Okay, I forgot. Okay.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Yeah, I was calling for, I called for the motion first, and so then we could discuss it afterward.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 7C, GAN limit resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments?
I would just really like it if we could just send a letter to the legislature asking them to remove this. This is one of the biggest wastes of our time, seeing as how the way in which things are set up now, the law is now, the GAN limit is really a joke. It would really be nice. Of course, it might not even be worth your time, Ruben, to even write the letter. But I just find it every time this comes up, it just amuses me. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7D, Medi-Cal Administrative Claiming Agreement with Sutter County Office of Education. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments on this item? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7E, Madison Enterprise Contract for E-rate services. Is there a motion to approve this item?
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Thank you. Any comments on this item?
I would just mention here that this is a great way to support our technology. I know that Mr. Vivier and his department are able to do more because we have E-rate than we would be able to do otherwise. So this is a longstanding relationship we have with Madison, and we're glad to bring this forth.
Thank you. And we've talked about this before, where this really does save the district quite a bit of money. You want to talk a little bit about that, or just back that up? Yeah.
Well, I told Mr. Barnes an interesting story that Mr. Castillo told me, which was when last spring we could not access the hotspots that we needed because there was such a large demand for them, and we found out that our neighboring district had extras that they could give to us and then bill us. Well, when we received the bill, the cost of the devices was higher than we had anticipated. And when Mr. Castillo looked into that, it turned out that what they pay for them is much more than what we pay for them because they don't have E-rate. And so it's just an example of how we're able to access technology, right? Because it's subsidized by this program. And it's been something that we've had for a long time, and it's been really, really, really fruitful for us.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, we'll hold for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7F, amendment to agreement for consultant services with Nino and More, geotechnical and environmental sciences consultants for facilities improvements at Glenwood Elementary School. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments on this item?
Could we get some explanation on it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Certainly. Yes. Jordan Miles from CFW again. Quick comment. I know that we have a similar item here, so I'll speak to both of those. So back in the winter, the board did approve of contracts for hazmat services with Nino and more. Those contracts, those original contracts were for the hazardous materials building testing materials services. So it's just for the testing component. This amendment to their contract will allow them to actually conduct the abatement of any materials found that need to be removed or taken care of in a special manner.
We didn't have anybody on contract already to do that in the event that that was needed?
The contract was just for the testing of those materials, and this just extends that contract to allow them to remove those materials properly.
Are we anticipating that there are materials that need to be removed?
So, Mr. DeLuce, in terms of the abatement, in terms of scale. So, for instance, at Robla, we knew that there would be a number of items that we had to abate, and so we had that particular service in place. Now, we're not aware necessarily of a large scale of either of those things, but at Bell Avenue, we are doing a modernization. And that modernization, as we open up walls, as we pull out tile, carpet, there may be things that were laid on top of other materials that may need to be removed. And although they may not present a present threat or any type of hazardous situation currently, once we get into construction, we will be potentially having those materials become exposed, and therefore these services do need to be on contract so that we're able to safely remove those and to get them out of the way as quickly as possible.
Did we already have these listed as, I mean, if this was already listed as a line item for that one, did we have it as a line item for this particular project? And I'm just curious why we didn't have someone get someone under contract or agreement before, as opposed to now.
So we do, these are line items in the budget. There are allocations within the budgets for each project. And in this particular case, there was just an administrative oversight of saying that, between the actual testing and the actual removal. So in terms of the scope of the original agreement, it was just the testing, whereas we need to have both the testing and the removal in place as we conduct construction. So this is not an overall increase to the cost. It's a line item that's already accounted for in all of our budgets. And we are just authorizing them to continue with this particular scope of services, which was left out of the previous agreement.
Okay. Is it pretty standard to have the same people do the testing, do the removal?
Yes, because they know where it is.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Absolutely, sir. It's a standard practice to have the same person remove it as the person who tests, and it's because they know exactly where there is, and they have and they're also the ones that are accountable. So, for instance, if they find more than what they thought that was going to be there, we can hold them accountable for that as well.
Sounds good. As a certified asbestos inspector and maintenance remover, I can attest to that's true.
I did not know that about you, Mr. Boyd.
That's been long, yeah.
I appreciate that cosign.
Emilio, let me make sure that I'm clear on what you're saying. So this was a line item, but if it wasn't needed, then we wouldn't be back here talking about approving additional, amendments, et cetera. You're saying that this is a part of the agreement, but it's only used when something is found.
Certainly. So I can address that. So typically what happens in these agreements, okay, is that there is a testing component and there is an abatement component. And from the beginning that both of those scopes of work would be included, especially when you're talking about construction. And what happened in this particular case is that we did not include either the cost or the scope for the removal in the original contract. So it's not that we've opened up walls and we've suddenly discovered additional work that needs to be done. This is just something that would have to be accounted for as we go into the course of construction. So normally what would happen, and it did not occur in this particular case, is that the contract that would have originally come to the board would have included both scopes of work. So regardless of whether or not they found anything, this was scope of work that we would have. If they found nothing, then obviously the end result of the contract would be much less than what the line item budgeted for the item would be.
Okay. I got it. So it wasn't in there, and so now we need to put it in there so we can go ahead and take care of what we need to do.
That's correct. And once again, it doesn't indicate necessarily that we have a widespread issue there. It does not indicate that we found more than we thought would be there. It's just that as we go into construction, we want to make sure that we're able to respond in a timely manner to anything that may be discovered. So for instance, just so the board's aware, when we were demolishing the Robla Elementary School site, we actually discovered 3 abandoned bolts that were septic tanks. And so we had to go and actually get the hazardous material folks on site, make sure there wasn't any lead or anything else of that nature during demolition. So we call those unforeseen conditions. And that may occur as we do the modernization of Bell, or in the case of Glenwood, where we're installing the new kindergarten classrooms. As we excavate that area, we may find stuff that we didn't necessarily know was there before. Similarly, I think the admin building found a well during construction as well. So given the age of your sites, given the age of the district, it's really there just to make sure that we can respond in a timely manner if something is found.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference in the financial impact from between this and our next action?
Certainly. So overall, the overall fiscal impact is for the Bell Avenue, which is a much larger scale project. It's about $37,000. Once again, that's paid out of the bond proceeds, and that's already a line item included in the budget. And for Glenwood
is about $22,000, Emilio.
Correct, and that's a slower scope. And once again, folks, if those are allowances of the contract, if those services are not required or not part of the scope that's been identified, then it ultimately be less. Correspondingly, if there's anything greater than that, so for instance, if we do find something that is potentially beyond the current magnitude being contemplated, then we would come back to you folks. But once again, the reason why we carry a project reserve within the budgets is to make sure we address any unforeseen conditions. So at this time, we do not anticipate any overall increase in budgets due to these line items, and we do not anticipate any budget overages for those projects due to these items as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion over this? And just so we don't get confused, we are on 7F. This is for Glenwood. So if there are no other questions or discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And we're moving on to item 7G, and this is going to sound very familiar. This is an amendment to the agreement for consulting services with Nino and More Geotechnical and Environmental Sciences Consultants for facilities improvements at Bell Avenue Elementary School this time. So is there a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Been moved and second. I don't imagine there's discussion, but is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Moving on to item 7H, the MOU between Robla Teachers Association and Robla School District for School Full Distance Learning Model 2020 and 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Oh, is there any discussion on this item?
If I could just comment, Mr. Barnes. I'll talk about both this MOU and the next item I, which is our MOU with CSEA. I just feel like it's important to acknowledge at this point that we have really positive relationships with our employee associations. And if you look at these two documents, you see that they are very detailed and they work very hard to not only outline very important ways that we will keep all of our employees safe, but also how we will provide a strong school system for our students under the current conditions. it's not that we don't have our disagreements around working out the details here, but I really do commend, as has already been said tonight, our association leadership, as well as all of our employees, and our ability to be functional and have good conversations around what is right and what is necessary. And it allows us to come up with documents such as these so that we can be sure that we continue to provide quality programs, but we also, under these current conditions, are keeping everybody as safe as we possibly can. So I very enthusiastically bring these to the board tonight.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Very good then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dennis, your mic is off. I caught that this time.
Aye. Sorry.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7I. MOU between California School Employees Association number 285 and Robla School District for school full distance learning and transitional models 2020-2021. To approve. Oh, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion?
You know, I just like to say again, thanks to everybody in this district for being, and as Mr. Ray said, I'm sure there was a lot of discussion going on, but still this district has the goal of what's best for our students. And hearing, I've talked to other people from different districts, board members, teachers, board members and teachers. And we are fortunate to have a real committed community like we do have. And I just want to again say thanks to everybody.
Ditto.
I second that.
Yep, same here.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Big smile. Okay, moving on to item 9. Board member requests for future agenda items and reports. And we will start with Trustee Howard. And since she wasn't around to give her report, this can be a moment if you would like to talk a little more freely. So Trustee Howard. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said I don't have anything to add for to report. And I think I'll wait on my future agenda items thing. I need to think on it a little bit more. So I don't have one now.
Okay, thank you. Trustee DeLuce.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. I one of the things I'd like to see is, we know that some, not necessarily in California, but we do know that some districts have opened up in other places. If there's any sort of data or information about, the results in terms of at the elementary level, whether it's, infection rates or attendance rates or anything, any sort of data that can help us make sure we have best practices in place when we get started, getting that information would be great.
Okay. Trustee Cardona.
No, nothing here.
Okay. Trustee Boyd.
Yeah. Going back on what Mr. DeLuce said, kind of we talked about that a little bit earlier. And I'll see what I can find out as far as data. I did bring the subject up, and I don't know if it'll be so much data. I'll do what I can. There may be a lot of anecdotal evidence in there too, but I'll see what I can find. And the other thing I was just thinking, I don't know if it's an item of discussion, but as we were trying to do that pledge, I was thinking if we may all take our turn and maybe video or get a video of somebody doing a pledge that we may think pleasing, and maybe have Adam present it, and we could just stand there and follow as it happens. Just an idea. I'm thinking primarily like students, getting a student to.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, with that, if you want, I'll work on it for the next meeting for the first one and see what we can do.
I like the idea.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. And as for me, going along with what Trustee DeLuce said, and when we had this discussion earlier, I would love to see what earlier districts have done and the issues or problems that they encountered, because we can learn from their wisdom or mistakes, however you want to call it. And so, if there is a way of seeing what issues or problems other school districts who have opened up have run into, then maybe that will help us anticipate problems and prevent them. So with that, we will. Well, I don't want to adjourn yet because I do want to acknowledge our invisible team member who helps keep this going, and that's Mr. Adam Vivier. And so, thank you very much, Mr. Vivier, for keeping us going with this during this time. So, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you to all who watched us on YouTube. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Good night,
Yes.
everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you. Good
everybody.
night. Good night.